busy bees. Last week we learned how to make a garden bed from scratch. Morning, busy bees. Last week we learned how to make a garden bed from scratch. Now we're going to discuss how to look after your garden and ensure your plants have the chance of growing and achieving their true potential. Some of you may believe that all plants need to grow is water. Imagine if all we had was water. We wouldn't be strong and healthy, and eventually we would die. So just like humans, plants need to be fed in order to strive. There are many different types of food, or rather fertilizers, to give your plants, and it can become a bit confusing as to what fertilizers to use. What you need to remember is the most important vital chemicals for plant growth are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Any fertilizer which contains all three of these essential elements is a balanced fertilizer. Nitrogen is for the leaves, phosphorus is for the roots, and potassium is for the flowers and the fruit. At your garden center, you will have multiple choices of chemical fertilizers. These have numbers like 3-to-1. The first number is the nitrogen proportion in the fertilizer. The second number is the phosphorus, and the third number is the potassium. If the letters SR follow the numbers, then it means that fertilizer is a slow release fertilizer. I like using a slow release fertilizer, as if you make a mistake and use too much, your plants won't be burnt. Also, it works over a long period of time, so you don't need to keep on applying it. Your consultant at the garden centre will be able to advise which fertilizer would be best for your specific plant needs. But remember, just ask in comments if you are unsure, and I will give you the best advice I can. You also get organic fertilizers like manure, worm castings, peat, seaweed, and guano. These are all good for feeding your plants and could use a combination of chemical and organic fertilizers for the best result. Some tips on applying fertilizers. Always apply fertilizer to damp soil and water it well in. Don't apply fertilizer too close to the stem or on the leaves of the plants. Sandy, light textured soil needs more fertilizer than clay soil. Apply extra fertilizer after heavy rains, as a lot of the nutrients are washed away and have to be replaced. The size of the plant will determine how much fertilizer and how often you should use it. Shrubs, perennials, and summer plants are generally dormant in winter, so you wouldn't fertilize them during this time. Allow these type of plants to rest and start fertilizing again in spring. Winter seedlings, however, need to be fertilized to optimize their potential. Last week we put wooden chips over the soil once we had planted. These act as a mulch. Mulch has many important functions. It keeps moisture and fertilizer in the soil. It helps to minimize weed growth in the garden, protects the roots from extreme cold and heat. Also, once the mulch breaks down, it becomes a form of fertilizer itself. Mulch could be anything from stones, which don't break down, bark chips, shredded paper, nutshells. I always make sure my garden beds are mulched, especially at the beginning of a new season. Kraal manure. It is nice and smelly, and it's friable, as you can see. No stones, no bark, nothing like that. It's just lovely. It's black gold. Sometimes, depending on the weather, your compost and your fertilizers are inclined to get wet in their bags, but not always, but it does. So I normally take my compost, and what I do is, this one's wet, this one's really wet, but we've had so much rain. So what I do is I take this compost and I let it dry in the sun, let it dry out. This is lovely, it's nice and it's coarse and it's got bark and it's got, it hasn't got stones in it, it's just got bark and pieces of grass and leaves and bits and pieces in it. So it's beautiful compost, and it does smell not as bad as the manure, but it has a lovely garden smell about it. Bone meal. Bone meal is actually crushed bones plus a few other crushed things in it, but it's so important to have bone meal for your roots of your plants, because this bone meal it feeds and it makes the roots very strong. It's full of calcium. These two are chemical fertilizers. We've had our organic fertilizers, and now we've got the chemical fertilizers. The chemical fertilizers you will use with your organic to get the full benefit of the fertilizer. This is for vegetables. And definitely your cabbages will grow. This one is a fertilizer that you use for your lawn, but also for your garden. It's a slow release, and it is a 515. Okay, you take your watering can, put water into it, and then you take one spoon. It's a measure that you'll find in the actual chemical fertilizer. You'll find this little measure in here. Now, one heaped spoon like that to what literage is this?
5 liters.
This is a 5-liter can of water, and you add that to it, and then you'll, okay. Oh yeah, it's dissolved nicely, and then we'll put it on our plants. Well, busy bees, I hope you have found today's session interesting, and I hope you have lots of questions for me. And don't miss out on our next week's episode. Be sure to subscribe. It's free. Free! What do we get for nothing?